Chapter 5S, Sustainability in the Supply Chain. This is a little bit more brief chapter, certainly than chapter number 4 or some chapter number 3. So in this particular case, we're going to talk about corporate social responsibility. We're going to describe what sustainability is and talk about the 3 R's of sustainability. So it's fairly straightforward in that regard. Social responsibility is a major topic these days. It used to be businesses were about just making money, but that has been replaced by some social responsibility. You can no longer be a polluter. You need to make as much effort as you can to reduce pollution and reuse and recycle, some of the R's. Going green, zero carbon footprint. These are major things for corporations, and they have found that they're also very cost effective by not just throwing out cardboard. They actually sell cardboard that the products come in. When I worked for London Drugs many years ago, they used to keep all the boxes that all the product would come in, and they would actually make money or sell those to companies that would buy it and recycle it. So when customers would come in and ask, can I have some boxes for I'm going to be moving, London Drugs wouldn't say no, but they wouldn't go and give the person 20 or 30 boxes. They might give the person like 2 or 3 or 4 and hand those out and say, that's what we have at this time. And the customer would, okay, they're getting them for free. But that would actually cost London Drugs money. Triple bottom line has to do with people, plant, and profit. And you need to be sensitive to the environment. You should also need to be sensitive to your customers and your employees. And you need to turn a profit or you will not stay in business. So you can see right from the very concept to the very disposal, a lot of thought is to minimize the use of raw materials. Different types of packaging are used. The amount of energy it takes to make something, the amount of, say, water that is used, or gas or electricity, whatever, and then the amount of waste. And is it biodegradable? 80% of a car, believe it or not, can be recycled. One of the biggest things with a car that can't be recycled is the glass. That's the biggest waste in a car. You cannot reuse the glass, but the cars are melted down, the metal in a car, when it's no longer used and hauled to the junkyard. They melt it and they use it as steel. In fact, almost all, if not all of the steel in North America comes from the ground. It comes from reused products, so it's recycled. So you have to pay attention how this affects the people, whether it be noxious fumes or even safety, globalizing, bringing product over from overseas, how much energy that takes. And the types of materials, again, biodegradable, are they come from recycled product, like paper especially. You need to pay attention to the environment. For the, in my hometown, we used to have we have a lake in the middle of town, but the mine used to, when they would extract gold from the ore, would use arsenic. And what they used to do years ago, this stopped many years ago, they used to then take that and it would go off into the water. The problem with that is it literally killed all the fish in the lake. And so we had this beautiful lake in the middle of my hometown, and nobody would go fishing there because there was no fish. And if there happened to be a fish, it was not something you'd want to eat because it had been poisoned. Not You cannot do that anymore. You need to make sure that you have sustainability. So this is where you want to generate as much energy as you consume. So that's what would be called zero carbon footprint. Again, you need to make a profit, and some organizations are more prone or more likely to emphasize different aspects of the 3Ps. Some companies are still more profit driven, and that can get them into quote trouble with the the rest of the population, where there's noxious fumes from a meat processing plant or things along this line, and some of it's not necessarily avoidable. A brewery that I'll take my students on a tour of will, in the past, the brewing process creates carbon dioxide. And they used to just simply let that go up into the atmosphere. It was considered harmless. In fact, to a degree, it was good for the environment, because carbon dioxide is trees and stuff like that use carbon dioxide. What they have done for several years, though, is they have bottled it, so it's not just going up into the atmosphere. And what they now do is they sell the carbon dioxide to other businesses that require carbon dioxide. So it works well in that regard. So the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. So reduce the amount of materials, which also can save money. Reuse it. So, for example, there was a tour I took my students on, and they spray this varnish onto the wood. And in this case, there'd be overspray. So there'd be like the excess. That would then go into a runoff area. They would filter it, and they would reuse it. So very little waste in that regard. So they would spray it. Any of the excess spray that would drip off or wouldn't go onto the product would go into sort of, if you want to say, like a drain. But rather than just going out into the water system, which it wouldn't be allowed, it goes and they would process it past a filter, and then it would go back and they would spray a new piece of wood. And of course, recycling is something you people are used to with your plastics and your paper and even metal. It's become a very common thing these days. Even designing the product, what types of materials it's made out of. Years ago, when I worked in the automotive industry, they paid a lot of attention to, is this material, is it going to fill up a landfill and be there in 1,000 years or not? And so coming up with alternative materials. Styrofoam used to be a big item for packaging, and it's not so much anymore. And that's the end of chapter 5S.